The story begins with Sarah and Henry. Sarah, who is Henry's fiancée, is being driven to her father's house in Vegas today. Wanting to spend more time together, the two decide to take a road trip instead of flying, hoping the long drive will give them a chance to talk and enjoy each other's company. At first, the trip is fun and relaxed. They laugh, talk, and enjoy the ride. But suddenly, their car slams into something with a violent impact. The force throws the car off the road. Henry quickly gets out to see what they hit. He expects to find an animal, but there is nothing there. No body, no movement, nothing at all. Even stranger, all four tires are in perfect condition. Everything looks completely normal, as if the crash never happened. So why did they feel such a powerful hit? Trying to ignore the strange incident, they continue driving, convincing themselves that maybe it was just their imagination. After a while, Henry notices a black Mustang behind them. It is getting closer fast. He points it out to Sarah, but she laughs it off, saying it is probably some reckless kid looking for a race. She tells Henry to speed up. Henry presses the accelerator, but the black Mustang speeds up too. He even signals for the car to pass, yet it refuses to go ahead. It stays right behind them, almost as if it is following them on purpose. Now both of them are becoming uneasy. Just then, they spot a gas station on the side of the road. Henry pulls in, and the black Mustang finally drives past them. Sarah does not want to stop. She's eager to reach her father before it gets too late. But Henry convinces her that since they are already there, they might as well grab something to eat. Inside the cafe, the mood changes. During their conversation, Henry asks Sarah a question that catches her off guard. He wonders if they are rushing into marriage too quickly. He says that with her father being sick, maybe they should wait a little longer. Sarah does not take it well. She wants to get married as soon as possible, and the tension between them starts to rise. Before the argument can get worse, a waitress approaches their table. Henry asks for water first and says they will order food later. The waitress brings them bottled water along with a few coins. When they ask about the coins, she explains that it is a local tradition. Customers can use them in the jukebox to play their favorite song. But as she walks away, she says something chilling. Take every chance you get, because not many living people come here. Henry barely reacts to the comment. He takes one of the coins, walks to the jukebox, and selects a song. At that exact moment, we see the black Mustang parked outside the cafe, and the very same song is playing inside that car. Back at the table, Sarah tells the waitress, Kelly, that Henry actually sang the song himself. Kelly smiles and compliments him. The couple packs some food for the road and leaves the cafe. Their journey is far from over, and they need to reach their destination before nightfall. This time, Sarah is driving, her eyes fixed on the dark highway ahead. But suddenly, something appears under their car again. The moment they feel the impact, both of them panic. Sarah insists that her eyes were on the road the entire time, and there was absolutely no one in front of them. Henry says he'll go outside and check. Maybe this time they really hit something. At the same time, we cut to the cafe owner. Callie walks over and tells him that the couple has just left. She asks, "Are we supposed to do the same thing to them too?" A girl sitting nearby speaks up and says, "Just let them go. None of this is their fault." But the owner coldly replied, "We have to do our job." The girl has bruises on her hands and tears are filling her eyes. One look at her makes it obvious that she's trapped in something terrible. But what is really going on here? We still don't know. Back on the road, Sarah and Henry start arguing. The situation has pushed both of them to the edge. Sarah becomes irritated because she feels like, instead of moving forward, they've somehow ended up back at the exact same place where they first stopped. Henry refuses to believe her. To him, that's simply impossible. Then Sarah looks behind them and freezes. The same black Mustang is parked behind their car again. Seeing this, Henry immediately asks for the car keys. But this time, Sarah decides not to run. She decides to confront whoever is inside that car. She walks straight up to the Mustang and tells the driver to roll down the window. The second she sees the person inside, She is absolutely terrified. Sitting in the driver's seat is a horrifying man, someone who looks almost demonic. Sarah instantly runs back to her car and speeds away as if she's in a life-or-death race. But after driving for a while, they realize the fuel is almost gone. They can't stop in the middle of the road. Luckily, they spot the same cafe again and pull up right in front of it. Because of that, the black Mustang drives past them. As soon as they enter the cafe, Sarah quickly asks Callie, "Can I use your phone?" Callie smiles and says yes. Sarah steps outside and immediately calls the police. She tells them that an unknown car has been following them for a long time and that a strange man is sitting inside it. The police respond that it will take several hours for officers to arrive, so they should stay where they are and remain safe. But then comes a shocking twist. The call Sarah made didn't go to the police at all. It went to John, the owner of the cafe. Why would he do that? What is he trying to hide? Sarah and Henry ask Callie for another coin, but she refuses. She says, "You only get one coin." Just then, Rubika, the girl sitting nearby, says, "Wait, I have a coin. I'll get it from my car." But before she can leave, John suddenly walks in and stops her. Seeing John, Henry explains that some crazy man has been following them on the road and trying to kill them. After hearing this, John says it's probably just some disturbed person who enjoys scaring people for fun. Henry immediately snaps at him, asking if this sounds like a joke. He says the man is literally trying to kill them. The owner steps in and tells Henry to calm down. He gives them permission to stay at the cafe and says they are not alone. Everyone there is with them, so they shouldn't be afraid. According to him, they're safe. Henry then asks how they somehow ended up back at the same place again. John explains that there's a loop in the road ahead. He thinks they must have gotten confused and unknowingly circled back to the cafe. At that moment, Sarah comes in from outside and says she has already called the police and they should arrive in a few hours. John asks them to sit down and then tells them about Rubika. He says she is a regular customer, but her mental state is a little unstable. He tells them not to worry, saying everyone there is used to her, and eventually, they will be too. After saying this, John gives Sarah a coin. She takes it and goes to call her father. The call connects, but on the other side, her father can only tell her that he is waiting for them there. Sarah can't hear anything else because the line is filled with loud background noise. Meanwhile, we see John forcing Rubika toward room number 17, located behind the cafe in the attached motel. Crying, Rubika says she isn't ready yet. But John coldly tells her that the more she resists, the more terrifying this will become for her. Still crying, Rubika warns him that the creature he keeps feeding will never be satisfied. John ignores her completely, shoves her into room 17, and locks the door from the outside. On the other hand, Sarah and Henry have finished eating. Mark, the cafe's chef, walks over with their bill. But before he can hand it to them, John suddenly takes the bill from him and says their meal is free tonight. The disturbing part is that the bill had the word "run" written on it. That means Mark already knows something terrible is about to happen to them. Sarah was starting to feel like something was seriously wrong. Ever since they arrived, the sunlight outside hadn't changed at all. It was as if time itself had frozen. John told them they should get some rest. He said a lot had happened since morning and mentioned that a room was already prepared for them. Sarah and Henry got up and followed him down the hallway. On the way, Sarah asked if any other customers had complained about the black Mustang. John quickly brushed it off and said she was worrying for no reason. According to him, nothing strange was going on, and they should just go to their room and relax. But that only made Sarah feel even more uneasy. Then a disturbing thought hit her. How did John know her name? Henry always called her Baby. He had never used her real name in front of him. At that moment, Sarah glanced toward the room beside theirs. Through the dim light, she saw the shadow of a girl inside, desperately struggling as if begging for help. She immediately showed Henry. Now both of them were convinced that something was terribly wrong with this place. Meanwhile, John kept pressuring them to go into the room. Realizing the situation was getting worse, Sarah and Henry suddenly ran for it. They rushed outside, jumped into their car, and sped away. John tried to chase them, but he couldn't catch them. Mark and Kelly came outside and asked, "What happened, boss?" Furious, John snapped, "If those two get away, neither of you will be safe." Kelly said they should help them, but John exploded in anger. "They're already dead," he said coldly. "There's no point helping them now." As Sarah drove down the road, she spotted the same man in black standing on the side of the highway. She told Henry that he was the same man who had been driving the black Mustang. "Something is definitely wrong," she whispered. Henry nodded. "I think someone is hunting us, and that cafe owner knows everything. Instead of helping us, he tried to use us." Back at the cafe, Mark was clearing all of Rubika's belongings out of her room because Rubika was no longer alive. As he looked through her things, he began to feel sick. He was disgusted with himself and with the work they were doing. His conscience could no longer tolerate it. He went straight to John and said, "We need to stop this right now." But John looked at him and replied, "This is our job, and things will always stay this way." On the road, Sarah and Henry were driving at full speed. Suddenly, Sarah's phone rang. It was her dad calling. But when she answered, instead of his voice, she heard terrifying, distorted sounds coming from the other side. And then those same sounds started playing through the car radio. Both of them froze in fear. A moment later, something struck the underside of their car again. This time, they didn't make the mistake of stopping. Henry pressed the accelerator even harder. Then Sarah looked into the rearview mirror. The black Mustang was behind them again. They raced down the highway, fighting to stay alive. But after driving for several more miles, they saw something that made their blood run cold. The same cafe had appeared in front of them once again. Outside the cafe, John, Mark, and Kelly stood watching everything unfold. Mark said, "I think these two are going to survive." For the first time, they actually showed real courage. But John wasn't so sure. Suddenly on the road, Sarah slammed on the brakes, letting the black Mustang speed past them. She quickly spun the car around and headed in the opposite direction. A few moments later, when they looked back, the black car was gone. That's when Henry noticed something strange. Ever since they had started this journey, the time on the clock hadn't changed at all. In reality, they had been driving for several hours. A disturbing thought crossed his mind. What if we're trapped in a time loop? Neither of them had an answer. They only wanted to escape this place somehow. But Sarah was starting to lose hope. They had been driving on the same road for the last 3 hours. This time they hadn't passed the cafe, and they hadn't seen the black Mustang either. Yet somehow, the road still felt exactly the same. Henry tried to stay calm. "You're right. We just need to keep the car moving at a steady speed." They took turns driving and continued forward. But after several more hours, Sarah woke Henry and whispered, "Something feels wrong. It feels like I've driven down this road thousands of times." Henry looked at the dashboard and froze. Even after all those hours, the fuel gauge hadn't moved. Now, he was certain. "This is a loop," he said, "and whoever created it wants us trapped here." He took a deep breath and added, "We have to break the loop. Driving on this road won't do it. We need to leave the car and walk into the desert." Sarah hated the idea. In that brutal heat, walking through the desert felt like a death sentence. But Henry convinced her. He promised he would protect her, no matter what. All she had to do was trust him. So they stepped out of the car and began walking into the endless desert. Back at the cafe, Kelly turned to Mark and said, "We should help them. I'm not worried about the two of them as much as I'm worried about the baby Sarah is carrying." Sarah was pregnant. Mark sighed. "I've tried many times before. It never changes anything." Meanwhile, Sarah and Henry had walked far from the road when they suddenly spotted an overturned car in the distance. There were dark stains of blood on it. As they got closer, their hearts stopped. It was their car. Henry stared at the wreck and said in a trembling voice, "We already died in this loop." The moment Sarah heard those words, she broke down in tears. And far away, standing silently in black clothes, the same mysterious man watched them from the darkness. Henry's anger shoots through the roof, and he charges at the man, ready to fight. But the devilish stranger strikes first and badly injures Henry. Terrified, Sarah grabs him, and the two run back the way they came and jump into their undamaged car. This time, Sarah takes the wheel and floors the accelerator. The black Mustang is still right behind them. A few minutes later, they pass the same cafe again, but this time they don't stop. Then, unbelievably, the cafe appears again. And the third time, it shows up even faster than before. Sarah realizes the horrifying truth. The loop is getting shorter and shorter. Meanwhile, Henry's condition is getting worse. He's losing strength fast and clearly needs medical help. With no other option, Sarah finally pulls over at the cafe. She rushes Henry inside and asks Kelly where John is. Kelly silently points outside. John is standing there, staring at the black Mustang. Sarah runs to him, and the moment John sees the fear and sadness on her face, he knows it's time to tell her the truth. He says, "Sarah, you and Henry were already in a car accident. Right now, your real bodies are lying on the road, covered in blood. And the Sarah standing in front of me is your soul." Sarah is frozen. John continues, "This place exists between your world and mine. People who die in tragic road accidents pass through here. We help them. We give them one last meal, one last moment of peace, and then a place to rest forever." Shocked, Sarah asks, "Is the man in black here to take us?" John nods. "Yes, he came for you." Sarah's face falls in despair. But then John says something unexpected. "You still have a chance. The baby inside you is alive, and Henry is alive too." At that moment, Henry regains consciousness. He looks at Kelly and asks in a weak voice, "Am I dead?" Kelly replies, "Not yet, but you're dying." Outside, John tells Sarah, "The man in black is pressuring us. The agreement was to take only you and Henry, not your child. Your baby is still alive. But if that child enters this world without you, what kind of life will it have?" Then he gives her one final hope. "You still have a chance to save yourself and your husband." Just then, Mark arrives and asks John for the keys to Sarah's car. John immediately hands them over. After that, John speaks to his boss and says, "The deal was only for those two. There's also a child involved, and I won't make that mistake." The boss replies, "Do what you think is right." John gives Mark a signal, and Mark speeds away in the car. The man in black instantly realizes what's happening. Furious, he goes after Mark. But suddenly, Mark turns the car around and drives straight toward him at full speed. A collision is inevitable. Mark knows that if the man in black survives, Sarah and Henry will never get another chance. So he slams into him without hesitation. The crash kills the man in black, and Mark dies with him. And with that, the story comes to an end. The film finally reveals that Sarah and Henry had already been in a terrible car accident. They were not completely dead. Their bodies were still taking their final breaths. That's why their souls were trapped inside this endless loop. But when the others discovered that Sarah was pregnant, they decided to give her one last chance to live. So, the one who came to take them away was destroyed instead. And that's where this haunting story ends. What did you think of the movie? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe to this channel for more.